It's been a while since we've thanked our patrons from patreon.com/comicsfronprofit, and we want to reiterate just how important those folks are to us, and I don't thank them enough. We try to encourage folks to check out our Patreon, get in there, get involved in our Slack, get involved in free stuff, some of our swag, and be a supporter of the show. And I wanted to do a shout out because I haven't done a shout out for a while to some of our patrons. So a quick rattling off. Joe, thank you to Joe Petrowski, Sergey Vishwakarma, G King, David Fink, Martin Ferretti, Christopher Ellis, Louis Velasco, David Donovan, Dennis Chandler, John Saavedra, Darren Williams, Nolan Sasher, Aaron Miller, Bradley Rader, Joy Garlington or Joey Garlington, I think probably Joey, Andrew Clark, John Abel, Charlie Churchill, Eric Helwig, and Singular. So a nice little shout out to some of our patrons. We could always use more. We appreciate those who are patrons over at Patreon, and thank you so much for your support. It helps pay the bills. And podcasting ain't free, and we appreciate all those who throw a couple shekels our way. So once again, thank you, patrons. This episode of Comics for Fun and Profit is brought to you by our YouTube channel. Yes, we have a growing YouTube channel. We need likes and subscribes. Go to YouTube, check out Comics for Fun and Profit. Just search Comics for Fun and Profit. Or you can go to beacons.ai/comicsfunprofit and find all our links, including our YouTube, and get there that way. Got about 600 plus of our episodes in there so far. Check them out at your leisure. We've got some playlists segmented, so all of our guest host episodes are on a playlist. All of our interview episodes by Jason are on a playlist. We're going to continue to go back in time and continue to add to those for you completists out there that want to listen to all of Comics for Fun and Profit's history, because they're gone. They're gone from Apple Podcasts. They're gone from Stitchers of the world. They have dropped off. I have them on a hard drive somewhere, and we'll get them archived onto YouTube for posterity. So when Kyle and I pass off this mortal coil, Google and YouTube ain't going nowhere. Our stuff will always be around. Please, I implore you. Even if you don't like YouTube or you don't like listening to podcasts on YouTube, I get it. But you like us, or you wouldn't be listening to this. Go to YouTube, like, subscribe. So we don't have there very many. We just started it. So we just started adding episodes. Would love your support in any way you can. Thank you.
Aloha! It's Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be interviewing a friend of the podcast, writer Samuel Sattin. He is here to promote Unico Awakening. This is the first manga from Graphix, an imprint of Scholastic Publishing. Now, this book is already out in stores. Samuel, welcome back to the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Jason. It's great to be back.
Yeah, Samuel, thank you very much. Now, before we begin the interview, I want to give a big shout out to Dustin Holland of Superfan Promotion. Dustin, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes and for help setting up this interview and providing me an advanced reading copy. Thank you very much, Dustin. Samuel, do you want to add anything to that?
Oh, no. Thank you so much to Dustin Holland and to David Hyde at Superman Promotions and everybody who works over there. And wow, to all the people over at that have kind of brought this project to light. And so it's been such a big, wonderful labor, and I'm thankful and grateful.
Oh, that's great. Okay, listener, I'm just going to go over actually a couple of Samuel's works. And Samuel, please feel free to jump in or add anything. Now,
Sure.
He has written, the following books: Buzzing, Side Quests, The Silent End, He has adapted 3 Academy Award-winning nominated films: Wolf Walkers, Songs of the Sea, and The Secret of Kells into graphic novels. Hopefully I pronounced that last title correctly.
You did, yes.
Okay. He has also co-authored these books, this this yeah, these 2 books. A Kid's Guide to Anime and Manga, the Essential Anime Guide, 50 Iconic Films. Samuel, did I miss anything, or is there something you want listeners to check out or anything?
No, well, I have a book coming out in October with Steens called Side Quest.
Okay.
That's going to be about the history of role-playing games, and um,
Mhm.
and yeah, and then but yeah, right now it's mostly all Unico all the time, which is what I've been on my mind. So yeah, but but it also and Buzzing was nominated for an Eisner this past year. I didn't win it, but it was such an honor to be
Congratulations.
nominated. It was
Yes.
really great. It was really cool. So that was such a fun thing to
Mhm.
happen.
I'm going to say, I think, if we have time, I may circle back to asking about, because I think you presented, right? Because Unico was also at San Diego Comic-Con, right? That's where you guys are also presenting.
It was. I was on a panel hosted by Deb Aoki with and accompanied by the translator Ben Applegate,
Yes.
and it was about kind of the magic of Osamu Tezuka, and that's what it was
Oh, okay.
titled. It was a great panel in which we presented kind of the some ideas on kind of modern iterations of Tezuka's work,
Uh-huh.
including and with Unico at the spotlight. So we're able to show the cool the trailer and the animated trailer and a bunch of other and field a bunch of questions and talk about Unico, and it was a joy.
Oh, that was great. Now, that's a perfect segue because I'm just gonna kind of like and jump. Please feel free to jump in because um te, um te, Teza Tezuko, is it Tezuko?
It's
You know,
Tezuka.
he's the
Tezuka.
Tezuka. He's the one who created Unico. He also one of his other creations that became popular in the US was he also, oh, what is it?
There's a big one.
Astro Boy. Was it
That's
Astro?
right. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah, which is, everybody knows of Astro Boy the world over.
Yes.
That's probably his most popular creation as Astro
Yes.
Boy. And or Tetsuwan Atom in Japanese. And then but he created quite a few characters and quite a few
Yes.
different types of work, and
Hmm.
pretty incredible for one person to span that many genres.
Yes. And then also too, um, let's see. Now correct me if I'm wrong. When he drew Unico, when he first started, he did it in a Western style tradition, right? Of because
Yes.
usually, yeah, because um he also like because they were reading from because usually manga is read from right to left, but for Unico he did from left to right. If
That's
correct me if I'm
absolutely
wrong.
correct. That's absolutely correct. Yeah. So what he did was, it was really fascinating because Unico was created on a trip he took to Los Angeles in
Hmm.
1976,
Hmm.
and he did so, and he was trying to work with he was working with Sanrio to try to find a character that could appeal to American kids in the
Yes.
70s and kind of get kids into reading manga, which is one of those things that in a way he was a bit he was it didn't really work because it was a bit ahead of his time. I
Hmm.
think
Yes.
like
Yeah.
now there's a manga explosion, but the 1970s it was
Oh yeah.
still a little bit difficult to introduce into the United States.
Yes.
And so, but what he did do in order to his idea was Tezuka had a long love affair with Disney films and Disney in general. He watched Bambi over 800 times.
Hmm.
He loved the lush painterly look of especially the backgrounds and
Hmm.
in films and stuff like that, and the character. So what he did is he tried to kind of do Unico in the manner of a storybook that could be inspired by a Disney film. And so you have a lot of these really lush, colorful backgrounds and painted backgrounds that are really beautiful and something you
Hmm.
don't see in a lot of manga. And he also had it read from left to right in a way to appeal to a
Hmm.
Western audience. It was still very much manga and still very much his work, but that's what he did. And so the result was a really kind of timeless work of his that became embraced a little bit further on, mostly through animated films. But
Hmm.
yeah, we can get into that if you want in a little while. Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah. And then also too, because now because reader, nowadays manga, everybody knows manga is in black and white, but back then he Unico was a first colored manga back then in the 70s. So
That's right.
that's real
It
cool.
was a full color manga, and
Yeah.
so it's like, which is very unique.
Yes. Hmm.
And so you go back and look at it, and again, it's just it's incredibly, it's painted too. The backgrounds are painted; they're absolutely beautiful. And so yeah, what you see in manga sometimes you see the first few pages that might be in color, and then after that it goes all to
Yes.
black and white.
Yeah.
And yeah, and this is like basically a full book that was like that. And so yeah, it's unusual in all of his work and in manga in general,
Hmm.
and it stands out for that reason.
Oh, okay. All right. No, thank you. And then I'm gonna ask is please talk about the origins of bringing Unico to a new generation because some of our long-term listeners they've heard of the previous interview when it first started when you were launching the Kickstarter. So
Sure.
please talk about like the origins of bringing this to a new generation.
Of course, yeah, I'd love to. So like, it was an incredible opportunity. I mean, I talked about this a little. I remember actually when I, like you were saying, we talked about it before. But essentially, the idea was through a friend of a friend.
Hmm.
Who began with my friend Deb Aoki, who
Hmm.
runs the podcast Manga Splaining and does some writing for Publishers Weekly and others. She introduced me to someone who then in turn figured out that I told that person I was a incredibly enthusiastic fan of Tezuka because I had
Hmm.
been for a long time. Tezuka's works inspired me in ways that I don't think a lot of other comics have. I
Hmm.
have I love all kinds of comics from all over the world, but
Yes.
Tezuka, in my opinion, has just really just kind of did so much with the medium of comics that he tried everything.
Yes.
It's
Hmm.
beautiful to look at, and he made works that were for kids, for adults, for everything in between,
Hmm.
and so many of them are so memorable and brilliant, and have so much depth to them. So when I got the chance to pitch a story to Tezuka Productions to kind of reimagine one of their characters, I
Yes.
looked through some of the characters and I found and I'd found they were talking about how they'd always kind of thought about trying to do something with Unico again, but it was kind of hard to
Yes.
figure out what to do with Unico because a lot of the pushes for it had just been merchandise, like people trying to go and, you know, make new,
Hmm.
stuff with Unico on it
Yeah.
from these in order to, because it was just like, cute.
Yes.
And then I went back and I really studied the story. I reread the story, and I was like, this is so much more
Hmm.
of an interesting story than it gets credit for. It's a really profound story. It has a lot of depth to it, and a lot of the characters are really fascinating. And then I of course rewatched the movies, which I had seen as a kid,
Hmm.
and I really enjoyed them. And so I gave them a pitch for Unico, and I started to really think that, and though I had a plot associated with the pitch, my main reason for wanting to do this was because I really thought the story could be because was kind of like necessary for a new
Hmm.
generation of readers because it's about you know this character who in the face of incredible odds and
Yes.
just continues to do good things because they're the right thing to do, as opposed to just because he can't remember why he
Hmm.
needs to do these things, and so
Hmm.
he just knows they're the right thing to do, and it's just kind of, and his powers are awakened by kind of friendship,
Yes.
and kind of like so he's he really is a powerful character in that regard. And the story is about memory and time and the environment and preservation of the environment and
Mm-hmm.
that. And I just thought, I was like, wow, this story is just is so needed for a complex story like this. Could be so
Yes.
useful for so many kids who are growing up in a complicated world. And
Yeah.
so, that's why I pitched it. And so and when they accepted, I was completely and totally bowled over. And
Mm-hmm.
then we went towards finding an artist for the campaign, which was Gurihiru. And
Yes.
and we can talk about them. I'm sure you might have a question about them, but you know, yeah, from there we went to a Kickstarter, and then after
Mm-hmm.
that, our agent pitched it out to Scholastic, and Scholastic gave us, such a huge, canvas to work on. So now it's just kind of a dream come true in that regard.
I'm gonna go. I want to take a step back because
Sure.
correct me because when you're talking about the story of Unico and because correct me if I'm wrong, was 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 this kind of sort of one of the original stories from Tezuka, or was this a your own story that you came up with? Because I'm trying to remember from our previous interview. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it's a blend of the two. It's a reimagining. So I call it
Good.
a rather straight adaptation. It's more of a reimagining. So we
Hmm.
take Tezuka. It's kind of and one of the stories that I'm kind of pulling from that I really love is Naoki Urasawa's Pluto, in which
Okay.
he borrowed an art. He took an arc from a story arc from Astro Boy, and then reimagined it in a larger
Hmm.
context, and provided a lot of and kind of spread out the universe, and gave a
Hmm.
lot of characters more in-depth roles. And that's kind of what we're doing with Unico, in which we take a story
Yes.
from the original stories, and
Hmm.
we create a larger context for which it can actually work, and give some characters larger roles.
Hmm.
And,
Yes. Hmm.
um, and then also we have, which was, I'm incredibly honored to be able to do this, but we have the permission from Tezuka Productions to end the story because it was never actually finished.
Oh,
Which is
oh.
something that happened with some of Tezuka's stories. Like, for example, his
Hmm.
masterwork Phoenix never
Hmm.
got finished, for example. And Unico and Phoenix are really similar in their themes. And so it's like, and Unico was never really finished either. And so we have the ability to give it an ending, which
Oh.
is something that we're really it's a big responsibility. But it requires a lot of original storytelling. Um
Yes.
and a lot of collaboration, and
Hmm.
it's incredibly exciting.
Oh, that must have been amazing for you to come up with the ending. I mean,
Yes,
I
yes,
cannot imagine the stress and the pressure, but for you to work with the Tezuka production company, you loved, you have a love for this character, you rewatched all the movies, you had an idea how to end this, you know.
yes. And it took a while to kind of get there, because my thing was, for me, was that, okay, if we're gonna try to do this with a Tezuka work, and we're gonna try to give it an ending,
Hmm.
we have to earn it. So
Yes.
it has to be good. So
Yes.
we have to make sure that we throw everything we can at it. And so it's like, that's what my whole entire, that was the hardest thing for me, was like, okay, like, we're not gonna just, we're not gonna just try to just tie this all up in a
Yeah.
convenient way. We need to make it big enough to honor the original work, and on Tezuka. So
Hmm.
that's been my goal with this project.
Oh, okay. Because I'm not going to jump into the story too much because we'll talk a little bit more, and we don't want to spoil anything, and I definitely don't want to spoil anything, but because when I read the whole story, I was like, because it wrapped up very nicely, and I thought, like you said, it was like a reimagining, a reimagination for a new audience, and I was going, okay, this, I thought it was just you guys already took you had a completed story, And I was like,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. Well, and that was that because when we first, because as you know, so you're I'm not sure if your listeners know, but it's going to be a series, a multi-book series with they go from that expands out and kind of
Mhm,
really carries it from beginning to end. But the first story, you're absolutely right, and one of the biggest concerns for me was
mhm.
to make sure that it stood on its own as well, because
Yes.
we wanted to make sure because we didn't know we were going to
Mhm.
get
Yeah.
we wanted
Mhm.
to turn it
Yes.
into a series, but we wanted to make sure that hey, this is the only one we ever do. Like we want it to be wrapped up, and so that
Yes.
was like and so we did our best to do that while leaving a little bit open at the end to say, hey,
It's yes.
we could be this can definitely go. We have a lot more to say.
Okay.
But it's like that's kind of the so I'm glad that kind of came from it, and also it is my opinion that each it's my hope that each book will have a main kind of uh thread that gets resolved,
Yes.
uh to an extent, and then while leaving kind of other things, one thing will get resolved in each book, even if the larger narrative is still open-ended.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna circle because yeah, because I think I'm gonna when I wrap up this portion of the interview, we're gonna talk about because yes, when I was coming towards the end, I didn't even know about anything about another book.
Right,
You
right.
know, till I saw like, oh,
Yeah, yeah, to be continued. Oh, it's like yeah, no, because we're gonna have we have a full arc in mind, and we have it all written out, and it's all so it's like we know what's gonna happen, and we can't I can't wait for people to continue reading. The next book's coming out in June of next year, so
you guys
yeah,
already have it pretty much set already. I mean, like it's
it's being drawn right now. It's beautiful, and it's just it's the colors are going through at the moment, and so it's really something else to look at.
okay. I'm sorry. Let me um, as you're saying, it's being drawn right now. Couple things. First, is it your art team, um, Gurihiru? First off, how did you team up with them?
So it was again this friend of a friend of a friend
Mm-hmm.
is an my his name is Aki Yanagi. He is a agent for different artists in
Mm-hmm.
and who have worked in the American comics in some way or another.
Mm-hmm.
So he has connections to a lot of the artists that have worked in this industry in our country.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and one of those artists is Gurihiru, and
Yes.
Gurihiru is extraordinary. They are an
Yes.
extraordinary
Mm-hmm.
artist team. It's two women who live in Saitama, Japan, which is outside of
Mm-hmm.
Tokyo, and they're just incredibly, they're geniuses,
Mm-hmm.
and so they've worked on a lot of American comics,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
like a Superman Smashes the Klan, which won an Eisner. Um,
It's
they
Jeff.
also it's Jeff, which just won an Eisner for best
Yeah.
humor
Mm-hmm.
publication, right? And
Yes.
then they worked in the Avatar adaptations, the Avatar: The Last Airbender adaptations, and
Mm-hmm.
Squirrel Girl and
Yes.
Gwenpool and
Mm-hmm.
so many incredible things. And they also work in Japan. So they also
Yes.
work in Disney
Oh,
Japan, and
yes.
they work with Ultraman, and they work with, all sorts of different things in Japan as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
and Nintendo, and so they really are one of those artist teams that can one of those rare artist teams that's able to kind of really work on both
Uh-huh.
sides of that divide, which
Yes.
is so rare. It's so rare to be able to
Uh-huh.
do that. And so it's like, so they're really amazing that way. And so when I approached them about it, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, this is the artist
Yes.
team to go. This has to be it.
Mm-hmm.
I really was just hoping that they felt the same way. And so when we went to them and asked them, though, they turned it down.
Oh.
They were like, no,
Oh.
no, 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 because they were a little bit nervous because having to do work on Tezuka's work is a big responsibility. And so it's like,
No, yeah.
it's kind of like, yeah, it'd be like getting it's kind of like if it's just like Tezuka is the person who started the modern manga and anime industry in
Yes.
Japan. And so it's like he's everybody who wanted to get into drawing or wanted to get into
Mm-hmm.
manga and or anime knows about Tezuka and studied Tezuka. And like he's the god of manga, you know,
Yes.
he's the he's
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
he's the one it all started with, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so to draw his characters is a big
Yes.
responsibility, especially to do so in such a public way. And so they were a little they were intimidated by it. And then we talked to them again and we kind of explained that they would be able to kind of put their own spin on it,
Mm-hmm.
and they would be able
Yes.
to kind of put their own spin on the characters and kind of do what they wanted to
Yes.
do. Tezuka Productions
Mm-hmm.
would be happy to work with them on their work, and
Mm-hmm.
then they accepted. And it's been such an incredible, I can't believe the serendipity of it all. So yeah, that's how they got involved with the project, and from then we've been working on these books.
Okay. Samuel, I'm sorry. So let's jump into Unico Awakening. I'm not gonna because one thing I want to at least because I know what the story I've read the story, but before I ask that question about this, like because technically this is like an origin story for Unico.
Yes,
Yes.
in a way, it's an origin story. It's so, you know, for I can give like so basically for those who might not know the story of Unico,
Mm-hmm.
the story of Unico is as follows. It's about a young unicorn whose ability to spread kindness and hope
Mm-hmm.
draws the ire of the goddess Venus. And the gods in general in the original story, but notably the goddess Venus, the god of love and beauty,
Yes.
who becomes jealous of
Mm-hmm.
Unicorn's ability to inspire human beings
Mm-hmm.
with kindness and things like that. So basically, like, you know, from there, she has one of her servants, the West Wind,
Mm-hmm.
uh, go and essentially abandon him on what's called the Hill of Forgetfulness or the Hill of
Mm-hmm.
Oblivion, make him forget everything he once was, and
Yes.
essentially destroy his memory and and throw him out of the heavens and exile him and essentially destroy him, you
Yeah.
know, in a way. And then but the West Wind instead ends up taking pity on Unico and
Yes.
hides him throughout time and ends up hiding him from the goddess, wiping his memory so that
Mm-hmm.
because if he remembers who he is and his powers awaken, he'll draw her eye again. And
Yes.
so it becomes kind of a story of the West Wind hiding Unico through space and time,
Mm-hmm.
and as he um, continues to evade the gods and makes friends along the way in the process and helps people and
Mm-hmm.
creatures and animals and things like that. And that's the original story
Mm-hmm.
of Unico, which we kind of in this first volume
Mm-hmm.
we take the origin the very beginning of that story
Mm-hmm.
and we kind of condensed into a smaller
Okay.
section. And
Yes.
then and just to kind of give an idea of like the background of Unico, and
Mm-hmm.
then we go into one of his adventures.
Yes.
And
Which
so,
is
which is what the first book is. And it's worth saying as well that though in the original Unico, he is uh, kind of constantly, forgetting who he is.
mm-hmm.
In
Yes.
this story, we are attempting to break his curse
Oh
and
yeah,
attempting to
yes.
rescue him from
Mm-hmm.
attempting to kind of like see how he could actually escape this cycle and
Yes. Mm-hmm.
become and find out who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like kind of part of our new reimagining of the story.
Oh, that's so cool. Now, because your cast of characters, listeners, I'm looking because I got my Kickstarter campaign book and I'm just look I have to flip through because
Oh, so cool. Yeah.
yes. So the cool thing I love and correct me because pretty much when listeners pick up the book through Scholastics, it's pretty much almost it's the same how it's formatted. It's just a different cover, correct?
Different cover, and there are a few differences. So, for example, in the Kickstarter edition, there were some people who were drawn into the book.
Yeah, because it's
And
because
and so
yeah.
we and that won't be that's not actually this. There's some different panels and page layouts that are in the Scholastic version,
Okay.
because Scholastic, we would have to gotten received permission from those people to depict them in the book. And
Mm-hmm.
so what we did instead is in the Kickstarter edition, it's very specific because those characters people are actually drawn into the book. And then
Yes.
also in the back of the book you have all the posters that were all
Yes.
of the illustrations that were made, and all the items that were made for the Kickstarter depicted in the
Mm-hmm.
back. And so it's a little different in that regard, in which we
Mm-hmm.
have a few things that are only specific to the Kickstarter edition.
Okay. Um, I'm going to ask for the Scholastic one, but pretty much the story format will be the same. Like, I mean, because I'm now, listeners, you can't see this, but and Samuel, hopefully I got this because you have your character page, correct?
Yes, that's
Okay,
right.
that's still because I love it how you guys have it broken down where on the left side it's almost like um the good guys, the characters, Unico, Chloe, Granny, and on the right side you have the basically the
The
quote
villains.
unquote the evil stepmother Venus, kind of sort of.
Yes, you're
I'm
right.
not
No, you're
saying that,
absolutely right.
but Venus, you have, I
Mhm.
believe, s- the sirens, which is Venus's minions, and correct, I think the Sphinx. It
The
plays
Sphinx, yeah,
a,
absolutely. Yep. Well, the
I,
Sphinx is actually kind of a hero or a villain. You'll see,
yes,
that's a complex character.
and yes, and that's the thing I love about this story because um listeners, and also, sorry, I'm kind of going a little bit off the page here because I told Samuel at the beginning of before we recorded, when I backed this Kickstarter, when we talked about it, I told Samuel I thought this was going to be this little cute, like kind of, and we talked about like My Little Pony. Is it going to be a cute little story about this unicorn? And oh yes, no, it's not. It starts off very cute, and in some and but for like I'm going to say for like a for an an old an older reader like me, it gets a little dark, and it's very good because like you said, Sam, I love how you said there's a little bit more depth to it, because even though
Yeah,
Unico's memory keeps getting wiped because the at Zephyrus, the West Wind, whenever Unico uses his powers, Venus knows, oh my god, he's kind of going, why is Unico still alive? And then Westwind has to come in,
that's
grab
right.
Unico, move him someplace else,
That's
and
right.
wipes out his memory. And it's a sad cycle. It is, you
It's a
know.
very it's a very sad cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. But the good thing, like you said, is that when Unico wakes up in a different place, he still has the kindness in him.
Yes.
He'll go, I have no idea where I am, but then he still has the kindness in his heart. He still,
Right.
he still helps people. So and then um let's see. And let's talk about at least a couple. We've already talked about Venus. Let's talk about, because Chloe, he bumps into Chloe. You want to talk a little bit about Chloe?
Sure. And also just to speak to what you were saying a moment ago, I think that's such a great thing to pick up on, because like one of my issues with, well, not issues, I mean, I have no issue with My Little Pony, but when people talk and say, like, oh, it's like My Little Pony for a Japanese My Little Pony, I'm like, no, it's not. It's really not.
Oh
Like, I
no,
know it's
yes.
but you should take a look at the story. It's got a lot more depth than just some brightly colored ponies hanging around and being friends, right?
Yes.
But like, and you're right, like Unico does have this at the center of the whole entire story is this character that no matter how much is thrown at him, he still is able to maintain
Mhm.
kindness and goodness, and
Yes.
just because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's it also shows like that the power continues to persist no matter how much he goes
Yes.
through. And so that's like the idea of the story is about perseverance,
Hmm.
you know, which I love. It's just an interesting theme. And so yeah, and then just to address your other question about Chloe. So Chloe is it's based off a character. Well, in the original Unico, Chloe was called Chow, but then Chow would turn into a human girl named Katie. So we thought it was a little bit confusing to have Chow
Yes.
and
Oh
Katie,
my
so
God.
we just
Yes.
combined it and we made them Chloe as one character. So that's why her name is Chloe. But she is a character who Unico meets. She actually
Hmm.
saves him when he lands in the city. He doesn't know where he is, and she saves him from, being hurt when he kind of gets, almost gets hit by a car and has to jump off a
Yes.
bridge
And
to escape it into a river below, and she pulls him out. And Chloe becomes one of Unico's dearest friends throughout this entire series. And one of the things that and so Chloe is I won't give too much away, but
hmm.
essentially
Yeah.
she's wronged by
Yes.
her owners, and
Hmm.
in response she decides, like, I don't want to be a cat anymore. I want to become a human,
Yes.
you know. And because of, and Unico is really suspected of this because, because he believes that, you should be okay with what you are, you
Yes.
should embrace what you are. But Chloe wants it so bad that, he gives in a way and says, okay, I'll turn you into a human for a limited amount of time each day, but you have
Yes.
to do the following
Hmm.
things: a good person and all these different things. And um and he does this. He transforms her into a human for a limited amount of time each day, but not without consequences that come along with it.
Yes.
And that's kind of like, and so that's also at the heart of the story too, is kind of the idea that, sure, you can try to run from who you are, and you can try to, like,
Hmm.
and avoid who you are, but the consequences may reach,
Hmm.
eventually. So it's like, that's kind of the head of the, and she's incredibly brave, and she's an incredibly cool character, and
Yes.
um and readers will be excited to know that there'll be more of her in the series going forward.
Oh, good. Okay, because no, I don't, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to give too much away, but the other thing I love about Chloe is, Chloe helps out Unico, and then, and then Chloe goes, I want to be a human. I want to be a human, and okay, but what I love about Chloe too is, um, she has her own motivation in this story. Oh,
That's
just
right.
okay, yeah, an hour is fine, yeah. Now, or I don't want to say too much because that's all it is, because we know what else happens. But yeah, an hour is fine. Okay, yeah, sure. No, all
Yeah,
right,
you're right. You're
and
right. She's kind of like thinking she has a little bit of an ulterior motive herself,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and Unico's kind of going because Gurihiru, how, and there's a couple, and I could be maybe I'm reading too much, but Unico, whenever they talk about this, Unico has that look of, I don't know if I should, and it comes across
Right.
the page. I don't know if I should do this, but okay, okay, I'll help you.
Yeah, like, because he wants to help her, because he does know that she does have a kind of he knows she has a goodness to her, and
Yes.
he also wants to, help her right the wrongs of her past, and, feel better about who she is.
Mhm.
But still, he's kind of like, I'm not sure if this is the right way to go about it. So
Yes.
he doesn't. One of the things I really like about Unico is that, as a character, is that he doesn't always, even though he tries to make good decisions, he also doesn't actually know himself what the
Mm.
consequences of some of those decisions are going to be. So, for
Yeah.
example, when he does decide when he discovers he's able to
Hmm.
turn into a human being, because he discovers his powers as he goes along, he doesn't necessarily know if it's the right thing to do. He's not always sure,
Hmm.
and he has to he's trying to figure out, like, again, who he is.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of choices that have to be made, and, not all of them are always the best choices, and he has to learn that too.
Now, listeners, I'm going to say me and Samuel are just only scratching the surface of this incredible story. Again, we've talked about it, like, you know, um, it's not a, it's not a just a, it's not a, again, it's not a, just a cute story, but as you guys can hear, this is a very deep story that has so many layers, and we haven't, and again, I don't want to spoil the story because there's a lot more things that gets a little dark. It gets it's not that dark. It's not, it gets a little dark, but a little deep too. And it's like, okay, you guys did that, in this, but it works. In this story, it works,
Yeah, well,
it,
that's one of the things because one of the things that we've talked about a lot is that so right now manga is huge.
yes,
It's what all these every kid who walks into a library or walks into a bookstore wants to read manga.
yes,
It's huge. It's just huge. So and one thing about manga, one of the reasons why Japanese it's just Japanese comics are appeal, I think, to so many readers is because they do have sometimes heavier or intense themes,
yes,
kind of peppered throughout them. Sometimes more so than we're willing that we have in American comics at
yes,
times, especially for younger for teen readers and things like
mm,
that. But the problem with some people are experiencing is that you have an 8-year-old who will be
mhm,
like, I want to read manga.
yes,
And like so they don't have stuff that is that and sometimes if you send them home with a copy of Demon Slayer,
oh
you
yes,
it might their parents might not be happy about it, right? So
yeah,
it's like so the idea of Unico does have some of those edges, but we
yes,
just kind of pull back on certain
yeah,
aspects to
mhm,
make sure that we can have that a kid can be introduced to
it's,
it. So like things that are kind of sexually suggestive, things like that.
yeah, no,
I pull back on those
yeah,
things and kind of and some of some extreme violence and things like that,
yes,
but we don't shy away from the themes or the ideas, which is
yeah,
kind of some of the things that I feel is important to kind of keep for a lot of reasons, because it
mhm,
just it gives that sense of like what a kid might be looking for
yeah,
when they read, and what I wanted when I read when
yes,
I was a
yeah,
kid. And
mhm,
like and in Japan kids will often read up
mhm,
and read a little bit up, so they'll have like an 8-year-old will be reading a book for 14-year-olds,
yeah,
or 15-year-olds. And so we kind of want to be able to kind of show that without do that kind of have that kind of effect without some of the more violent and
yes,
suggestive
mhm,
things. So yeah, darkness is okay for me as long
yeah,
as it has that kind of you know we're able to keep the story
mhm,
centered for a younger audience.
yes. And just real quickly, I just want to mention because if I remember correctly, because I think it's like geared between 8 to 12 year olds, but and when I talk about it's a little dark, I'm talking like Bambi animation dark, a little bit dark like
Yeah,
that. Because
absolutely.
the mom is killed by a hunter, and it's like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but they're not going to show the blood and guts and everything. No, it's
Right.
just this is part of life, and that's I think that's the thing. It's a part of life, but and this is what happens. But okay, something happened, but we're not going to go
Right.
push that far.
Well, and
Yeah,
we shy away from some of those things in modern storytelling for kids, and like
it's
because I
yeah,
mean, like I think that maybe in around the time of which Bambi, Snow White, books like that, movies like that were being made, and then even in the 60s and 70s too, early 80s, there were a lot of films that were for kids, but they didn't shy away from darker themes or things that happen
yes,
in life or real or harder truths
mm-hmm,
to kind of examine like and now we have, I think that there is a little bit more reticence to kind of have those things present in kids
yes,
fiction, which is why but that's what I would love to help return to the give because I think those stories meant so much to me as a kid, like those kind of stories.
because it presents real life too.
That's right.
It's like again, I'm not going to go into the whole in because I don't want to spoil anything, but again, this is what happens in real life,
Right.
So
Exactly.
sorry, yeah, I'm trying to dance around. The story gets a little bit more not dark, but it
I
naturally
know what you mean.
unfolds
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
Unico and Chloe wind up. But yeah, all right.
Yes.
So I'm going to start moving on because I don't want to take up too much of your time. Um, couple things. What was it like to see Gurihiru's artwork for this book the first time you saw it? Like, what was like, oh my God, I'm seeing pages. Holy cow. I never thought I would, you know, what were your feelings? What were your thoughts?
It blew my mind. I was so to see the story come together and to continue to see it coming together. And I mean, like, all I can say is I cannot wait for readers to also get their way into the to book two and things like that. It just you see this evolution of the artwork, and this happens with every book that I work on,
Mm-hmm.
but particularly with Unico.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, every single page blows my mind, and also because Gurihiru, their compositions, their motion
Yes.
work, their characters, the dynamism, the color usage is
Yes.
uh, it just it's so evocative that you can't help but like look at every page and just be like it completely it just captures your imagination in such vivid in such so quickly and so
Mm-hmm.
intensely that yeah, every page is a work of art. And so I can't yeah, for me seeing it, I'm just like, oh, it's just like this is unbelievable. In the
Yes.
most quintessential sense of the word, unbelievable. Like it's like, I'm like, I can't believe that they can that every page is like this.
And you mentioned the colors too, is that um there's a very brightness to the story. Even when there's like scenes of during the evening time or nighttime, you know, um, there's still a brightness in there.
That's
And
right.
that's why I love it because it's still, it yeah, it's just the colors just pop off the page. I don't know
That's
what
right.
else to say.
It's hard to say, right? It's hard to give it an
It's
actual adjective. It's just like
yeah.
yeah, and you're like, and it's the idea that, I think that there's a lot of magic in this story. And
Yes.
so, trying to depict magic and what that
Hmm.
feels like visually
Uh-huh.
and is so hard to do, and yet
Hmm.
they do it.
Yeah.
So it's like, so yeah, you're right. Every page, even the darker pages or the pages that take place at night or when there's always a sense of color in there that really works its way through.
It's kind of like wherever Unigo is and what he's dealing with, the colors still provide hope.
That's right.
That's,
That's right.
you
Yeah,
know,
that's exactly right. He is kind of like the light in the dark.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm sorry. So I'm going to continue. I want to ask a few more questions because I want to at least try to get to at least, some other stuff. But because like you said, Unico, you guys, it's a reimagine. You guys updated some of the character looks, and one of the because think I can't remember, but I think like Venus, for example,
Yep.
Venus,
Mm-hmm.
because I saw the original design of Venus back in the 70s, and it was, the typical manga, this Japanese female, you know, but Gurihiru, when they redesigned Venus, I love Venus in this story.
Yes. Yeah.
She just looks wicked. She doesn't look human, but she looks wicked. And it's like, oh, so you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, I love the design of Venus. I think it's like what we wanted to go for when we tried to redesign some of the characters, like some of the characters. What I wanted to try to do was to make them seem like unearthly beings. Like they were not
Yes.
these are not humans. These are divine celestial beings. These are
Mm-hmm.
creatures.
Yes.
These are creatures from another plane of existence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
so, Venus in particular, looks like, that's what kind of what I told Gurihiru when I was talking to them. And then what they did was they based Venus's design off of a flower.
Yes,
And
that's right. Yeah.
kind of like, and like, I can't remember which flower they used, but they
Mm-hmm.
used a certain type of flower. And then from that, they built this character that's kind of like, you know, an embodiment of what beauty might
Mm-hmm.
look like.
Yes.
If it was a goddess, and if
Mm-hmm.
that goddess was in turn, um, you know, uh, vengeful.
Yes.
So it's like, she has this striking royalty to her, and this striking like beauty to her, while
Mm-hmm.
also being a um a a creature of sorry, cars going by.
Oh
Uh,
no, no, it's all right. Mm-hmm.
while also being, yeah. So she's always kind of immaculate in her appearance, and
Yes. Mm-hmm.
yet kind of otherworldly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's kind of the idea that we went for with that, and I
Mm-hmm.
love how it turned out. And we're trying to, when we work with the gods and the celestials going forward, because there are going to be more of them that you meet as we go forward throughout the
Okay. Mm-hmm.
story. We're trying to really kind of, um create a canon of
Mm-hmm.
creatures that really embody ideas like
Mm-hmm.
love, beauty, war, hunting, destruction, you know, all sorts of different kind of, you know, uh, ideas being embodied in these creatures.
Okay, that's so cool. All right, so Sammy, I'm going to start slowly wrapping things up.
Of course.
Because I know you guys had a free comic book day, um, um free comic book day comic. And
Yes.
then also the book has been out for a while. What were some of the fans' reactions?
Well, so yeah, now it came out on August 6th, so it's the third week it's out, right? So
Hmm.
it's like, yeah, there's been a lot of I've been so heartened to see the positivity, the positive reactions to the book, that people seem to really be identifying with Unico's journey.
Hmm.
And they're really, the artwork is really resonating, and people are excited. It seems like people are excited to see where the series heads. And there's been
Yes.
a
Hmm.
lot of, I'm really excited for book two, which is,
Hmm.
the music to my ears. So it's been so wonderful to hear. And I know that in a way, this is not at all a boast, but I saw that Unico has been in the indie bestsellers list for the past 2 weeks.
That's right. Yes.
And
Yeah.
so,
Hmm.
as people seem to be picking it up and reading it and checking it out from their library, which is just so great. And
Hmm.
you know, uh, please continue to support Unico and to support this series. We can't tell you how much we appreciate your reactions and your eyes when you read.
Um, I'm going to say that's a perfect place to end that um this portion of the interview. But I do want to give a shout out to some of the other people on the creative team, and you feel free to correct me if I miss someone. The letterers is done by DC Hopkins,
That's
um,
right.
David Saylor, Jonah Newman are editors. The book design, Karina Taylor, creative director Phil Falco. All right. And you already mentioned that volume two, Unico Hunted, is the next
That's
title.
right.
That's going to come out next June, right?
That's right.
Or
Yeah.
hopefully, that's the target date. But
Oh no, and we're on track. We're very much on track for it. So it's definitely June 25 is the release for Unico Hunted.
oh, that's nice. All right, two more questions. Um, Actually, sorry, three more questions. All right,
Of course.
you talked about you were at San Diego Comic Con. Did you pick up any cool things at San Diego Comic Con?
This year, I was so busy running around San Diego Comic-Con, I really didn't get a chance to. Oh, I got some books. I went to the
Okay.
Kinokuniya book store, and I picked up some books. I didn't have a chance to really. I tried to get in line to get this really cool Ninja Turtle Transformers thing that mashup that I really wanted, this figure.
Hmm.
Uh, and I tried to stand in line, but I was there for 45 minutes, and I had to get out.
Oh God.
I had a panel, and I had to get out, so I couldn't get it. But yeah, but I definitely saw a lot of cool things at Comic-Con that I wanted. So maybe next year.
I'm gonna go back to one of the questions for Unico because in the opening pages, because I almost forgot to ask you this question, for Kate and all her magic. Who is
Yeah.
Kate?
Kate is my wife, and she is awesome. And so she's incredible, and yeah, I really do. She has a kind of rare form of magic that I don't think I've never quite interacted with before, and
Mhm.
so it inspires me daily.
Thank you for sharing that. Um, I'm going to ask any other closing words to our listeners.
Just thank you so much for reading, for listening. Unico is really the definition of a labor of love for us, and
Mhm.
love is at the center of the book, and
Mhm.
the thing that is at the center of Unico is love. So yeah, just please check out the book. Let us know what you
Mhm.
think. Write us personally if you really hate it, scream it from the rooftops. Let us know. Whatever,
No,
whatever.
don't do that.
Don't do
just,
that.
just,
Yeah, yeah, maybe
just,
if you
just,
don't
just
hate.
kind of say, "Hey, I don't like the book," and that's it.
Yeah. No, but just whatever your reaction is to it,
Yeah.
please just let us know. We'd love to hear. And pick up a copy, tell your friends. Pick up a copy for your kids if you have them,
Hmm.
or your
Yes.
friends' kids. And yeah, just thank you so much for your support, and your continued support. And we couldn't appreciate it more.
Samuel, mahalo. Thank you in Hawaii. Thank you for giving me, thank you for your time and thank you for giving me another opportunity to interview you. I'm going to wish you continued success with Unico Awakening. I want to thank Dustin of Superfan Promotion for setting up this interview and just all the hard work behind the scenes and the advanced copies. Thank you very much, Dustin. Now, if you are a new comic book reader or a lifelong comic book reader who loves manga, please check out Unico Awakening from Graphix, an imprint of Scholastic Publishing. Now, this book is already out in stores. I love this story because as we talked about it, it's like it's about you know let me start off this is a very deep story, but the main thing, it's also full of hope, full of love, and it's also full of fun too. I got to keep stressing that too. There's a lot of fun scenes in here too. um Now, so you know listeners, I'm being serious. Listeners, if you know a friend or a family member, or someone who's a tween, between the ages of 8 to 12, who love manga or who loves to read, you know, please consider picking this up and giving this book to them as a gift. I want to thank Drew, the co-host of Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together. Drew, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. And if you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys. Aloha.
Our LCS is Cowabunga Comics out of Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, and their mail order company, Deep Discount Comics. And we went there, and we were actually invoice number 00001. We were the very first their very first customer, which was kind of cool. They've been nothing short of fantastic, customer service wise, discounts. They were very close, if not the same or better than DCBS on a lot of things. Over and
Hmm.
above, customer service wise, always taking care of us, going the extra mile, so responsive, getting instantaneous responses back to questions about things, and to the point where knowing the stuff you like and anticipating your needs and having it suggested that you might want to add this to your order already before you even have to think about it. That's kind of cool. Really quality experience. So we love working with Cowabunga and Deep Discount, and that's why they're in our show notes every single episode and have been for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes. That we leave them there because we like them. They're cool, good people. That's why they're in there. By God, they'd tell you to, if you've got a local comic book shop that you love, stay with them, because everybody needs to support their local comic shops. But if you're looking, check them out. You can check them out in the show notes. There's plenty of ways to get a hold of them. Either get on their list, just so you can check and see what kind of FOC and pre-order stuff they have and the discounts, and they'll send it to you each month, get you on that email list. And you can check out their shop, because they have a great shop of exclusive Cowabunga variants. Amazing stuff. Yes, they've always been there for us, and we take them for granted. So there you go. Now you know. Shop on Threadless at comicsfunprofit.threadless.com, where you can find about half a dozen different designs, plenty of comics for fun and profit themed merch. If you just want a t-shirt, you're good, and if you want sweatshirts or other swaggy items, and you can get anything. Phone cases, shower curtains, it runs the gamut. Skateboards, I think. So check that out. We've already sold several. We're excited about the fact that the folks that want to support us in this way are able to and wear our merch out in the real world. That's pretty exciting stuff. So get your comics for fun and profit, branded items at comicsfunprofit.threadless.com.